12 Sportsman, it's Lamont. We back. Another podcast video, man. Another reaction to, again, a lot of these things that I'm coming across on the internet, man. I think we see some of these shorts, we see some of these videos, and they just kind of go over our head, especially the ones in regards to sports where these players are kind of breaking down the game from their own perspective. And I think a lot of times when we hear the players speak, we don't understand that this is a perspective coming from the inside out, right? Another side of the spectrum in these basketball conversations that we generally don't get a perception of. We don't really understand the reality of stepping foot on these NBA courts. We don't understand the reality of if you don't perform, your whole livelihood could potentially be on the line. Like, there's a lot of things we don't necessarily understand the reality of. We don't, a lot of times, especially when we go into these debates and we're hearing from casuals and just fans coming in from the outside in, and it's just like, do you guys truly understand what these players have to deal with and go through just to get game ready to play, just to be an average player in the NBA, let alone the superstars and the all-stars of the league, what those guys have to do to prepare and be elite for a full NBA season. So, I came across this short right here. It's about Lonzo Ball, or not necessarily about him. He was reflecting on how he was able to improve his jumper so significantly in a short amount of time. And I just think it's one of those elements of the game of basketball that a lot of people take for granted, because in these conversations, we hear people saying, oh, Giannis just needs to get a jump shot, as if it's just that easy to hit a switch and get a jump shot. Or they make these claims or say these things that players need to do. And I think you kind of disrespect some of the things that these players put into their games to be great. And, Lonzo Ball, who's dealing with a very significant knee injury right now. Hopefully he can get healthy, but as it stands right now, the man is going to be out for the 23-24 NBA season. Hopefully he can, get that corrected soon and we can see him back on the court, because the Chicago Bulls have definitely not been the same without him. But in this particular segment, he was reflecting on how he was able to make adjustments to his jump shot to improve in the NBA. And it's just, again, it gives you a perspective that we generally do not hear and see much from these guys that struggle in the league. They have to deal with the criticism and the banter from fans and media. But I'm going to play this video. We're going to check it out. Then I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. Let's go ahead and hear from Lonzo Ball.
It's kind of crazy because I was a shooter my whole life, hitting threes my whole life. I come in the league and now I can't shoot no more. And I owe a lot of credit to my coach in New Orleans, who was my shooting coach. I remember first coming to New Orleans. I get there, I'm working out, I'm shooting around, he's rebounding for me. 3-4 days goes by and he's like, yo, we about to change this. I'm like season about to start. Like, what you mean about to change it? He's like, I'm gonna be here. I'm like, all right, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it. So I just remember shooting the first 2 weeks, I'm like, man, this. I'm about to just go back. But I can't tell you how many nights he helped BI too as well. We was in there every night, man, just shooting. He turned my career around for sure. For me,
and there we have it right there. Lonzo Ball speaking on how he was able to fix his jump shot. And this is what I tell a lot of people, being able to make improvements on your game is highly predicated sometimes on the trainers, the staff, the organization that you have around you. Lonzo Ball played with the Lakers. The Lakers struggled to help this man repair his jump shot. Not that it was necessarily just completely broken jump shot. They struggled to have or find the right personnel that could give him the confidence to shoot certain shots and then make the adjustments in his form to help him get off a smoother release for more efficiency with regards to NBA. I think one of the biggest things that players talk about in NBA basketball is the speed of the game, the adjustments to the speed of the game. Some of the best shooters in the NBA, when you talk about the Birds, the Currys, the Klay Thompsons, a lot of these guys came into the league with naturally lightning quick releases. And so, although athletically, a lot of these guys needed to catch up with the NBA game, with regards to their jump shots, the speed of their jump shot did not need to catch up. And I think the guys that come into the league and then have trouble shooting the basketball are generally the players who don't really have a quick flow and progression through their jump shot. And then you have to speed that up with regards to NBA speed in the NBA game. And those are the players who get sped up with regards to the process of how they shoot. Those are the guards that generally are struggling with their shot as they transition to the NBA. And so I think for Lonzo Ball, he talked about how he had an organization in New Orleans. He had a trainer there that was dedicated and willing to work with him day and night to repair his jumper. And it's just, those are indicators of a great organization in the making. Not every team has dedicated trainers and assistant coaches of that magnitude. And then even if they are dedicated, they have to know the tricks of the trade, like the Phil Handys. They have to know the tricks of the trade to then incorporate that into your game. They have to find ways to mold that and then make you consistent at it. So I think there's a lot of things that fall in the line. So I think when we go into these debates, and when I hear you guys saying, oh, this player needs to come back with a jump shot, or just make it seem like it's just about going in the gym, shooting shots and coming back next year and you're much better, I think the mechanics of your jumper, the mentality, the confidence that your organization is able to put into you, all of those things play a role in you seeing significant changes in your game. And it's not just about you going into a gym, shooting more shots to get better. A player that we most recently talked about with Ben Simmons. We watched this man mentally start to break down in the NBA. And this was one of the best young players in the league, a guy who was an all-star, a guy who was an all-NBA level player, a guy who was an all-NBA level defender. But because he has been a part of organizations that, one, from the outside looking in, don't necessarily have the dedicated personnel working with him to build that rapport up. Obviously, you can see that from the coaching staffs with Bruce Brown, who they had public criticism for him. With Doc Rivers, we saw how that fallout happened. We're watching things crumble around these players, and then we point and blame the players when everything goes wrong. And I'm always big on this. I always get on people. If you're going to point the blame at the players, why don't you equally point the blame at a lot of these organizations and coaching staff that also play a role in corrupting some of these really good players? We can even assign this to the Kwame Brown narrative. Kwame Brown definitely played a role in his own demise with very poor work ethic. But the organization in Washington also played a hand in that as well. So while it's easy to point the blame at guys like a Kwame Brown or Anthony Bennett, we also want to make sure that we're equally dispersing this criticism and blame to a lot of these coaches and a lot of these organizations that are doing an extremely poor job with players in season and in the off season and also in the media with regards to how they speak on the players, how they train these guys, and then how they provide the necessary resources for these guys to thrive in the roles that they're giving these players. And we should be more mindful of that as we go into these debates. So before you come into another debate with a sloppy, narrative-driven argument on a player saying that this guy is lazy or he doesn't work hard or he's not doing anything in the offseason like we sometimes hear, remember what I said at the beginning of this video. We have a perception that's only looking at the game from the outside looking in. We can only take a guess as to what's going on the inside. And because we push as the media, because fans push so many flawed narratives, players shut down on us. Players don't like interacting with us common fans. They really don't like interacting with the media and then opening up about the struggles of what's going on. And a lot of times these players can't necessarily talk about their struggles because then they would have to, in turn, also denigrate their own organizations and or coaching staffs. So as opposed to ruining their careers by exposing this to the public, they stay silent. They take the criticism and the slander and then hope they get placed in better situations where ultimately they can thrive. And we can point to a number of players in the NBA right now that are going through similar circumstances. So again, it's just another nugget of advice for a lot of you guys to take into these debates. Just so we want to make sure that we're not always blaming players for failures, and we equally disperse that blame to organizations and coaching staffs who also play an equal role in these players not living up to expectations. But it's FYF Sports. It's been another great podcast episode. We will be back with more sports and news. But until then, it's FYF Sports. We out.
On my own, no fixer. I'm gon' ball, no picker. That I 8 doors, they live for. Talking on my back, go figure. Whole team eats from splitter. Never was the one to go flicker. No face, no case, no pictures. Full place, big stakes, my dinner. Flip that, Canal Street. Flip bags. Last week, old money. This week, new racks. Never buy none more. If I can't afford to gift wrap.